what's my show? It ain't really my show, but
Like Grey's Anatomy.
yes. So it's like the Grey's
Yeah,
Anatomy type, like when you got
but yeah, but it's like more real because it's
yeah, yeah,
real.
real, yeah, it's
But
real.
yeah, like the whole like how they do rounds and how they like are taking care of patients. That's pretty is pretty true, and the whole resident team and everything like that.
Yeah.
And so we would go to surgery after we did rounds, and you would sometimes they would do like a laparoscopic, so you get to drive the camera and like look inside the body,
Yeah.
or they do what's really up and coming is like the robotics. So it's like this giant like $11 million robot that they put the ports on there and the cameras, and they go to this little console and they like use their fingers and they like manipulate the body in there, cut stuff, burn stuff, and take stuff out. And you can just sit and watch it on like this giant screen.
$11 million robot.
Play me some pimping, man.
This the coldest podcast you'll ever hear. The way we coming with it, people witnessing greatness. Be a part of the journey. I would say it's perfect timing, but it's God's timing. We locked in a time capsule with this one. We got timeless topics. Guess what? I'm your mother's favorite host. Your little brother's OG. I go by the name of Armand Lindsay, but the neighborhood call me Big Pig. I want to welcome y'all to Big Boss Talk, Season 2, The Rebirth. Let's ride, and welcome to a Black Man Thing.
What's going on, everybody? Good afternoon. I don't know where you are when you're watching this, when you're listening to this. It's afternoon over here in Houston, Texas. It's very much raining all day, but we got another episode on Big Boss Talk, the podcast, and I have like I tell you all the time, I got great guests. Very premier guests, but this one is very different just because we kind of grew up together, right? We went to church together. We sung on the choir together. We did all I don't know, our parents were definitely involved in the church, and if there's an event at church or they need somebody to do something, it was either, Janelle, can you do this? Rashid, can you do this? And even if we were like, no, we do not want to do that, it was like, no, you're going to do it anyway. And so it was very much, we just had that type of relationship where it's just like we were very dependable, and just, I guess they thought that we were just, we were good people to be around and good people to do things and set a right example. And I can definitely say Janelle has set a great example, ever since being, young to now doing her thing in medical school. But we got Janelle on here, and so I'm gonna give you Janelle's information real quick, and then I'll have Janelle say what's up to the podcast. So we got Janelle Robinson, or you can say Hannah. I don't know if you're going by Hannah now, but Hannah go by both. Okay, got you. So we're gonna go. I'm gonna stick with Janelle. So Janelle Robinson, age 27. She's in her third year in medical school, but she's a medical student going into OB-GYN. Okay, she got her college degree from College of Charleston with a BS in biology. Is now at the Medical University of South Carolina for a doctorate in medicine. Years in profession is 3 in counting, and so she's been doing her thing. But Janelle, say what's up.
Hey y'all, I'm so glad to be here. So excited to talk about what it's like to be a med student.
Ooh, thank you. But listen, we got to get 2 truths and a lie. We got to get the game in. Hopefully you got a solid 3 statements. Hopefully you can catch me off track. We'll see. So go ahead and give us your 3 statements.
All right. Number 1, I can play the clarinet.
Okay.
Number 2, I drive a Jeep Grand Cherokee. Or number 3, I've been stranded in Honduras.
Okay. So the last one is a truth. Like, come on, stranded in Honduras. That sounds so absurd that you can't even make something like that up. Like, I wouldn't even be able. Like, that's a truth. The only 2 things I'm confused about is the clarinet and the Grand Cherokee. Clarinet, and I want to say that I don't know if like the church had like some type of talent show or something, and you played the clarinet one time. I don't know if you ever brought it to church and was just like, yeah, I can play the clarinet. But I'm gonna go with the Grand Cherokee. I'm gonna say that's a lie. I don't think you drive a Jeep. You said a Jeep Grand Cherokee, right? I don't think you drive that. That's the lie.
That's true.
Yeah. So that's pretty good. So I'm 9-3 now. But wow. So the clarinet, I figured. Have you ever played the clarinet? Like you had to bring it to church one time and just like.
I did play it, but I can't play it anymore.
Okay, got you. So,
Yeah, it's probably been a decade now, at least.
wow. Okay, got you. And so getting lost in Honduras, how does that happen?
So I didn't get lost, I got stranded. So I went on a medical mission trip my senior year of college, and we were like 3 hours from the airport, and we had one of my classmates get really sick. So it was time for us to come back, and the healthcare in Honduras obviously isn't what it is in America. And we were trying to get back to get him to Atlanta, and they have this very strict rule about not flying off the tarmac after sunset.
Right.
Simply because of the mountains. And so, our flight got delayed and then it got canceled. So we got stuck there another day.
Okay.
The next day we all got scheduled and then our flight got delayed again. And then we got on the tarmac and we missed takeoff by 1 minute.
No.
1 minute. And they turned the plane around. And we sat on that plane for probably about 30, 40 minutes. We ended up calling the vice president of Delta Airlines.
Yeah.
It was like, bruh, we have this sick kid on this board. We have to get him to Atlanta. So he let us fly against regulations. And we got back Christmas morning at like 3 a.m.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Talk about pool. Y'all had to call Delta. Like, look, this person is sick. Like, you got to go. Like, oh, my God. Okay.
He's doing good now, and he's actually engaged to one of my classmates. So.
Oh, small world. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So got stranded, not lost, but got stranded in Honduras. That's something I hope I never have to experience. But if I experience, I know who to call.
We got like hotel rooms for each of us with king size beds. It was nice. I just wanted to be home for the holidays.
Was Honduras nice? Like
the part like by the airport's really nice and the beaches are really nice, but where we were, it was very rural. We had to like the water was so unclean, like we had to bring our own water and have it like filtered and stuff, and we couldn't swim, we couldn't brush our teeth with the water. And it was hot, so
Kind of understand that. Well, let's talk to me about College of Charleston. Like, what was your decision making process and going to College of Charleston? What was it like? Why did you choose College of Charleston over, other schools? And do you feel like that was just the best choice for you? Do you feel like?
So I've always wanted to go to medical school. So my decision to go to College of Charleston is actually very strategic. Okay. I wanted to go to MUSC for medical school, and because College of Charleston is only 4 blocks away, that's why I actually went to College of Charleston.
Got you. So that was very strategic. You didn't see it no other way. College of Charleston.
I didn't see it any other way, but in hindsight, I probably should have went somewhere else just based off of the amount of money that I was given. It's one of those things like the other school like reached out after I'd already started school at College of Charleston and was like, oh, here's the full ride. And I was like, But I needed to go away it was Winthrop, so I needed to go away. And I feel like I grew a lot because I was away from home. So.
Yeah, I feel like if I would have went to school in Winthrop, it wouldn't have been I wouldn't have grew as much.
Exactly.
As when you get away, I'm pretty sure with your experience, you was like, you found different people to talk to. When you don't have mom and dad or that support system to always go back home, you end up finding relationships and friends, and you just kind of y'all fend together, right? Like I got ramen this time. If you don't got none, you can come get some of mine. Yeah, what you got? We can share snacks. I ain't got much. So the struggle of being a college student is real. But how was the program at College of Charleston? Was it super rigorous? How was it?
I mean, whatever class you took, whatever major you went, it had its own challenges. I've always been like a science person. I've always done like advanced classes for the STEM majors like science and math and stuff like that. So those classes weren't too hard. I think like once I declared my major and got into this courses, like I took a course on ecology.
Yeah.
I cared nothing. I don't say about the ecosystem, but like we were out in like the swamps messing with snails and stuff. So, you know, it just kind of depends on what courses you take. But college also, I mean, it's a pretty tough school. It's pretty rigorous. But I mean, if you got the motivation and the desire, I mean, you put in the effort, I mean, you're sure to get the good out of it. I mean, your efforts won't go for naught. So
Right. What was your motivation as far as like, was it just the motivation of like, look, I gotta get like, you know, I gotta get this job. I gotta, you know, make X amount of money. Like, or was it more or less like, no, like I really want to help people. Like, I'm just, people have different motives and different motivations. But what was your motivation to get you through like some of those tough times where you're like, I need a C. That's it. I'm praying for a C.
listen, and I got a few. It was definitely the end goal. And I just remember, like, I've always wanted to be a doctor. Like, I wanted, like, probably since 6th grade, I knew I wanted to be a doctor, and I knew I wanted to be an OB. It's kind of stuck with me. So just thinking about that, but like you said, how like we grew up in church, and we had like younger kids behind us.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, when people found out that I wanted to be a doctor, I remember one young girl, she walked up to me and she was like, Janelle, I had a dream about you last night, and you were a doctor. So now I want to be a doctor. And I was like, oh, well, I guess I gotta go. So I always like think back to those conversations because, like you said, like there are people looking up to us.
Yeah.
And you know, medicine and even like college is one of those things like a lot of people don't see us doing.
Yeah.
Like I knew I was always going to go to college because both my parents went to college. They both got their master's degrees, and it was kind of like instilled to me to go to college.
Yeah.
And then I knew my end goal, but definitely like it wasn't even about the money. I mean, yeah, doctors make money, but like depending on where you go, and like if you do like rural medicine versus like at a very prestigious academic center, I mean your salaries can be different. But it was really like, okay, I'm doing this because I didn't really see a lot of me growing up, and then like knowing that little girls are telling me that they're looking up to me, I'm like, yep, let me keep going, let me keep going. And I haven't regretted it yet, so. That's
awesome. So just the self-motivation of just, I mean, it's crazy that you never realize like who is actually paying attention to you, right? Like I always thought like, I mean, why are you even paying attention to me? Like I'm doing all right. You know, I'm not the most perfect person, but it's just like, why me? And you know, you always just wonder like why people, just admire you or look up to you. And it's kind of neat and it's humbling to see, especially I'm pretty sure when you got that conversation when she was like, I had a dream about you and you was going to be a doctor. It's kind of like God puts, you have certain conversations with people and you be like, God must have sent you to just kind of, it was just to keep you moving. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's like you don't even know, like, why? How did you, And it's sometimes it's like, how did you even know I was going through something like that, or how did you even know like that's what I was facing, and I needed that extra motivation. So it's like God put certain people your way just to have like a conversation, and I'm pretty sure you have ton of moments, like that, and so. I guess what made you, because I know you talked about being, you declared a major, probably maybe a year or two in as you were, when did you declare a major?
It was after sophomore year, or a little bit before actually. Like I said, like my whole journey to medicine was very strategic. And I think that's because I needed it to be strategic. Like I didn't want to kind of like be floundering around when it came to something so serious as this. So I declared like probably like the second half or like the first semester of sophomore year. And I was like, I'm gonna do biology because I knew like I needed to take the Mcat for medical school, which is the entrance exam. Right. And so I needed to take all of the courses to prepare me for that test. And luckily my major had all those courses. Yeah. So it was very, very, very strategic. I'm not even going front.
Gotcha. I remember you studying for the MCAT. I don't know, we was at church or something. It might have been for the holiday, and I, how people ask you like, "What you doing?" And you're like, "Studying for the MCAT, getting ready." I was like, "Ooh, that sounds like a hard test." I'm like, "Good, you got it. You got
8 hours.
8 hours.
It was an 8-hour exam. It was brutal.
Oh my God. So I mean, I want to go into that, but let me. I want to start with. You said you always wanted to be a doctor, right? And OB just kind of stuck with you. You never had any aspirations of doing anything different. You just always knew it was going to be medical, something medical.
So So actually, I wanted to be a teacher when I was in elementary school.
Got you.
My second grade teacher was a African American woman, and I still talk to her to this day.
Okay.
Like, I will tell her when I'm graduating from like college and everything. I was there when her first son was born, when her baby was born. I went to her housewarming, so we're still in touch. And just seeing her and how she dealt with students, I was like, I want to be a teacher. I want to be just like her. Like, I was that student that was like, I would come and help her decorate her classroom during the summer and help her move out and move back in. And we'd like order pizza and stuff. And then she let you get teacher. She actually moved up the grade to third grade with our entire class. We just all moved up with her.
Okay.
So I really, really wanted to be a teacher. But I think sixth grade, I think we all have to go through the health class, you know. And I watched that Miracle of Life video, and I was amazed at what female body can do.
Yeah.
I was like, that's what I want to be a baby doctor, because I didn't know the word was. I didn't know the word was obstetrician. That kind of stuck with me. But what's even more funny is, you know, my brother, obviously, because we all went to church together, he wanted to be a doctor when he was younger.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy that y'all flip flop like that, because Ray's a teacher, and now you want to be the doctor. Now that's funny. That is, you can't make that up. So that's pretty cool. And talk to us right now. What does your day-to-day look like as a medical student? You know, I know you're super busy. What does being a medical student, insist of? Like, tell us, you know, the good parts, the bad parts, you know, some of the stuff that you just like, because people need to know before they jump into something, right? Because being a doctor, that takes commitment, time, money. The biggest part is money. So if you don't want to do it for real, you know, we want to save you some money and maybe save you some time as well. But just tell us about, you know, medical school and the steps of just what do you have to do, because you graduated. Talk to us. You graduated, and then what was those next steps to get into a program, and then what the program consists of.
Okay. First off, you have to get a 4-year degree from a university. And then you have to take the medical college admissions test. I think that's what Mcat stands for. It used to be like a 4-hour test, but now it's 8 hours, consisting of 4 sections of some really heavy science-based topics. And then there's some like critical analysis, like so reading some passages and stuff and being able to deduce answers. And then there's like a psychology and sociology section. So you take that, and then you have to, turn in your transcripts, submit all of your experiences. So have you done anything that shows them that you're interested in medicine? Have you went and got an extra degree? Are you in the military? Like little things like that really make you stand out from your average person. Because, I mean, everyone's going to have grades. Everyone's going to have a GPA. Everyone's going to have an MCAT score. Yeah. And then you got to like figure out how you're going to shine on that application. Yeah. And depending on where you go, each program's kind of different. So you always have to do your research about what program you're interested in going to. Okay. Then you apply, and then you get, what we call a secondary application, where it's from the school specifically, and you answer some more questions from them. And then you interview. And interviewing is very stressful, but sometimes it can be just like we're having a conversation, very low key, very chill. They just want to get to know you because they've seen you on paper. They just want to know what your personality is like.
Gotcha.
So you interview, and you get that call, and your life is changed. Okay. I will never forget that call. Like, I had that date ingrained in my brain. Like, I will never forget that call. Yeah. And so when you get to medical school, it kind of, the first 2 years are pretty much the same across the board for every medical school. It's called your pre-clinical or your pre-clerkship curriculum. And that's where you're learning all the information about medicine. Okay. So you're learning how the body works, and you're learning what happens when it goes wrong. Yeah. So you're like in the classroom. So like at MUSC, we would spend 4 hours a day having lectures in the morning. And then in the afternoon, you would have activities to kind of solidify that. So we'd be learning how to, interview a patient, how to kind of like figure out like what's going on based on what they just told us, learning how to do the physical exam and things like that. And kind of preparing you to get ready to start your clinical years, which is what I'm in now, where you're actually interacting with real people and not paid actors.
So is that more, I'm sorry to interrupt. Is that called Bedside Manners? Like you working on your Your bedside manners, or like?
Yeah,
Okay,
because
got it.
some people who are very personal have wonderful bedside manner naturally. You're very
Okay.
empathetic, you're very compassionate, you're
Yeah.
just a nice person, and then some people need to be taught.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so they give us, essentially, it's almost like a handbook of like some statements you can say. So like for those awkward conversations, like, okay, these are some questions I ask all of my patients, because some things in medicine are very touchy topics. So you want
Yeah.
to like, how can you like approach the patient that way to not make them feel like you're attacking them or you're trying to get all up in their business? But I mean,
Right.
it's medicine. And then learning how to like, be aware of when patients need a moment, if they have some bad news and you just need to give them some silence, or, like, I'm really sorry to hear that. Like, let them know that you care.
Right.
And some people just have to be taught that. But it's all right.
Yeah, they do have to be taught.
Yeah, the bedside manner, it's a really big thing. So it really can make or break a patient's trust in you.
Yeah.
So it's a really good thing for people to watch and make sure that you have, and kind of like, guide you. If you're saying something a little too harsh, kind of like tone it down a little bit.
Yeah.
But so they're kind of like preparing you to start doing that with the real people in those first 2 years, which is really good, because some schools, you don't learn how to do all that until you get to third year, kind of like on the job training. But MUSC is really good about like getting you involved. And sometimes we even have like shadowing experiences, and we're interacting with patients prior to starting pre-clerkship.
Yeah.
And then after your second year, when you finish that, so you've gone through all the body systems, you learned all the good stuff, all the bad stuff. Now it's time to take your first board exam. Mm-hmm. So this board exam is one of the 3 that you take before you take your oral boards. So you have to take these and pass them before you can move on into medical school.
Right.
And these are one of your licensing exams, that you can be a licensed practitioner when you finish.
Okay.
So after your second year, you take your first one. It's an 8-hour exam, and it's basically on all the stuff you just learned for the past 2 years. And it could be on anything. It's
I
literally
love these
like
8-hour tests. I'm telling you right now.
It is so tiring.
I don't know what's wrong with these 8-hour tests. I need something with an hour.
Listen, and like the good thing about it is like the schools give you about between 4 to 6 weeks to study for the test. Like that's your job. Your job is to just study for that test for 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And then you take it, and then you get your it used to be scored. So when I took it, I was a class to get a score. And depending on what you were interested in, like you kind of wanted to score in a certain range, to make your application for residency a lot stronger. Mm-hmm. But for the current class behind me, theirs is pass-fail, which is still hard to pass. It's a really hard test. So that's what you do after your second year. And then after we took that, we did some like a research year. So we did some research over the summer. Yeah. Some people did like a global health where you could like travel, or that's what would happen if we weren't in COVID.
Yeah, COVID. Yeah.
So like you could do research, you could do like global health and travel, you could do physicians as a teacher, where you're like really focused on like academic medicine. Yeah. And then you can do, I want to say the last one was like humanities. I don't know, because I didn't do that track. And then after that, we had a little break, and then we started third year, which is clerkship. And this is where you're doing like your core rotations. There are 8 that we go through. We do pediatrics, we do neurology, we do general surgery, family medicine, OB-GYN, psychiatry, and internal medicine, which takes up 2 blocks. Oh. And basically, you are doing on-the-job training. Yeah. Where they're trying to help you get used to interacting with patients, mm-hmm. and then focusing your brain on like whatever system you're on. So like pediatrics, you're like, how are we treating kids? Like, how do you take care of kids? Yeah. What are some common diseases that kids deal with? How do you have to tailor your questions and your physical exam to kids? Because kids don't like to sit still. Right. You learn to like start playing with your stethoscope to get them used to stuff. They don't like stuff going in their ears, so you have to like play with them and get creative. Yeah. Or you kind of just like, okay, I don't need to ask this question because it's a kid versus like if it was adult. Yeah. And then you learn what's common diseases to them and how to treat them. And then, at the end of the day, our job is to because we are med students, to keep our mind as broad as when it comes to, so like if a kid comes in with a cough, we have to think, maybe they have bronchitis, maybe they have croup, maybe they have like ARDS, like maybe they have all this stuff just because they have a cough. And then you narrow it down to figure out what's going on. So that's really what third year is as you go, rotation. Yeah. I'm currently on my OB rotation. Okay. So just the day in the life of that, when I was on gynecology, oncology, so gynecological cancers. I'd have to get to school like 4:45 a.m., 5 a.m., and go see my patients.
Yeah.
See how they did overnight and yesterday, and update their notes. And then, our notes had to be signed by 5:45 a.m. so that the residents could go over them. And then you do team rounds.
Yeah.
And then you would go to surgery.
So hold on. So is this like what's my show? It ain't really my show, but
Grey's Anatomy.
yes. So it's like the Grey's Anatomy type, like when you got.
Yeah, but it's like more real because it's real.
Yeah, it's real.
Yeah, like the whole like how they do rounds and how they like are taking care of patients. It's pretty true, and the whole resident team and everything like that.
Yeah.
And so we would go to surgery after we did rounds, and you would sometimes they would do like a laparoscopic, so you get to drive the camera and like look inside the body, or they do what's really up and coming is like the robotics. So it's like this giant like $11 million robot that they put the ports on there and the cameras, and they go to this little console and they like use their fingers and they like manipulate the body in there, cut stuff, burn stuff, and take stuff out. And you can just sit and watch it on like this giant screen.
$11 million robot.
Yeah, it's called the Da Vinci. Okay. If anyone like looks it up, if you look up like the Da Vinci robot for like medicine, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay.
So it's really like amazing. And they're really good about letting med students like ask questions and teaching you and letting you participate. I've closed up some people's like portholes, what we call them when the camera was.
Yeah.
So you get up their skin and stuff, or you get to help like take biopsies from certain areas of the body. Ooh. You get to hold stuff.
Man, you got a strong stomach. I can't do it. Like.
Yes, that's the other thing about medicine is you have to have a pretty strong stomach, but not really. Like, the gross anatomy lab, that's real.
Okay.
So you're going in there with the cadavers and, you're spending your time with them, getting very acquainted with them for, a year. I thought I would have been a lot more nervous about it because I'd never done like gross anatomy.
Yeah.
But, a couple of times in there, me and that body were best friends, okay? It's actually a shame to say how used to bodies med students get. It's really weird actually. Yeah. But yeah, if that's your thing and you do have a strong stomach. And then, once we finish up the surgeries for the day, you would go home and then you still have to study.
Yeah.
So for each rotation, you have what we call a shelf exam.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to not only like participate in the day. So we work the same hours as residents.
Okay.
So whatever time constrictions are on, like more than 80 hours a week, we're on that same time constraint.
Yeah.
Except for we're paying to be there. Because tuition.
That's another thing. But yeah, I'm paying to be here.
Yeah, and then you to go home and still study because you have to pass the test to move on to the next year. Like you have to pass all the core rotations. And so like before I got on, I was studying for my OB-GYN shelf. And then you also get graded on your performance. Like, are you, really eager, like willing to learn, how well do you communicate with patients? Like, how's your medical knowledge? Like, have you actually been studying and can answer some of my questions?
Yeah.
And, like, are you professional? Like, are you a genuine good person?
Yeah.
So that goes into your grade. And then we also do what we call, I don't know what the acronym stands for. I want to say it's Objective Student Clinical Exam, but we call it an OSCE. And that's basically where you are watched from like a double mirror or like a camera, and they watch you do a full patient encounter. So from start to finish, you go in, take their history, you do a physical exam, you talk to the patient about what you think is going on and what you want to do for them. Wow. And so you get graded on that too, because they want to make sure that you are making those strides to learn how to process, and like when you're in clinic as a clinician that you know like what to do or have an idea.
So let me paint this picture. So when you talk about they watch you from a double mirror, the way I look at it is like when you watch those CSI shows and they interrogating people, it's like this double mirror and you in there by yourself and they watching you taking notes on your whole interaction. Bro, I be so nervous. I done hit the wrong bone. My bad.
Like that. Yeah, it's literally you and the patient, the paid actor, and then the mirror behind you or the camera, and they're literally watching you like an interrogation, and they're grading you. And it's nervous when you're like going up to it. And I want to say like the ones we did in our first couple of years, like first 2 years, which is more like history based and not necessarily physical exam, were a lot more nervous. But like you also kind of like you know they're there, but you can't see them. So like you kind of forget that they're there, and you really just have a conversation with the patient.
Gotcha.
And it gets easier in third year because you've been doing this for like every 6 weeks. You're getting used to interviewing these patients, and then you know, they're just there. Like, you know, they're there, but they're not. Because in the first 2 years, when we learned how to do this, we would be in small groups, like in a classroom, it'd be like 2 doctors, like 2 preceptors, and then like 9 of you and your classmates, and y'all would interview and do the physical exam in front of each other. So you could see everybody looking at you. That was more nerve-wracking than like the actual like test part. Plus, they give checklists, so if you do everything on the checklist, you good. You know, you're good. It's pass fail. So
Got you. Man, so that's, oh my God, that's a lot. Okay, so you gave me a lot of information, and I think that's very interesting. For one, I think you have to be a very smart individual, because everything that you talked about is more like you said it's more like a funnel. You got to think why and then bring it in to narrow it down to what it could possibly be. And there's so many different things out there where when you talk about, I got to study, I'm studying, it's like, no, you really are studying. And it's one of those things where it's like, you know how I used to be like, I'm studying, but I'm like, I'm looking over my notes. I'm kind of like, okay, I can remember this. But no, this is really like, you need to know it inside and out, and then know how to apply it. So it's a lot of application, and kudos to you. I'm just like, I'm amazed that you even like are still doing this and continue, because I would have like just the stomach part myself, right? Just being able to see things, I would have been like, nah, I don't think I can do it. When you talk about your rotations, right? When you talk about pediatrics, you were at the OB, you know, you went all these different what did you call it? Rotations, yeah. So rotations. What was your least favorite, and then what was your favorite? Because I know some people that are doctors, and I know like they'll like I've heard stories with psychiatric, like that's not their favorite. You know what I'm saying? Like, not my favorite. But I did enjoy this part. So what was your favorite, and then what was you didn't like? What did you didn't like?
So because I'm in third year still, I haven't done all of them.
Oh, you haven't done all of them so far.
To date,
yeah,
I would have to say my worst one I disliked the most was probably general surgery. And it's not because I don't like surgery, because OB is a surgical specialty.
Yeah.
I think I just didn't like the surgeries that I did. Like, I was on plastic surgery, and I was on like bariatric surgery. Okay. So I don't know if you ever watched like my 600-pound life with Dr. Now and stuff. Yeah. So I was doing like those surgeries, and I think it was more so like, and honestly, like every rotation hasn't been bad, but when they have really horrible hours, you're just tired all the time.
Gotcha.
And so surgery was that one where we had to be there at like 5 a.m. and we weren't leaving until like 6 p.m.
Yeah.
Still had to study. They didn't give you like a lot of study days. Like, I was just exhausted. And I had a bunch of like imposter syndrome, because surgery is so broad, especially plastic surgery. Like, you know, a lot of people think about like breast reductions and like, you know, stuff that makes you look good. Yeah. But in reality, plastic surgeons do a lot. Like, they are the specialty that other specialties call when they don't know how to do something.
Wow.
Like I was talking like one day, like neurosurgery called because they needed plastic surgery to come and close up the spine. And so I'm just in there looking at the spine and watching them close the muscles on top of the spine. And I'm just like,
oh, wow.
And I just like the fact that like my like having to jump around from organ system to organ system is something I just really don't like personally.
Okay, I got you.
So it's like I like to do something that's very focused. So like OB is a very focused one. Like, it's, you know, all parts of the body are involved, but at the end of the day, it's in relation to that one organ system, which is the reproductive tract.
Got you.
So yeah, surgery is probably the worst one, just simply because of the hours, not because it's the hours just suck.
Okay.
Then my favorite to date is OB.
God, I was going
Last week I was on labor and deliveries. So I got to do some deliveries, and I got to help deliver the afterbirth, and that really was like, yep, this is it for me. This is it for me.
Why is it that women love to see like births. So like I'm in this group chat with like my wife and like her kind of immediate friends, but you know it's like a big group chat. And one of her friends was like highlighting like, oh, I got to see a baby delivered today, and like, oh my god. And then everybody, all the girls was like, oh my god, you're living the life. I'm like, what is going on? And then I know my wife would sit around on YouTube and watch deliveries, and I'm like, I don't want what? Like, why is that such a big thing? Like,
I think it's because like it's our body
yeah,
and just seeing like what we can do, like we can grow a whole human
yeah, that's
and then push it
wild.
out. Like
Yeah,
it's nothing.
that's
And I feel like
wild.
that's amazing. Like not everybody, obviously males, can't do that. And I think it's really empowering to see how powerful the female body really is.
Yeah.
And then like when you have people that are really close to you do it, I mean, and at the end of the day, you get a baby out of it, you know, you like little kiddos like I do,
Yeah.
you know.
You get a little baby.
But I really think it might be because just seeing the power that's within us naturally,
Yeah.
is probably something that really makes women like really enjoy like seeing, you know, the circle of life, you know, like, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, y'all are like super powerful. You know, when you think about how you just explain it, you know, how you explain it, and just naturally, you know, you take something very small, you grow it into like a baby human, and then you push it out, and then it's just, it is wild. I can't imagine guys doing it. Yeah, I can't imagine guys doing it because I can't handle cramps. Like I'm like, nah, this ain't working. Like my stomach hurt.
Yeah, I think watching dads is the best part and seeing how they react once the baby's
Hey, I'm telling you, I want to watch. I always joke and kid and be like, I'm not watching. Like I always tell her, I'm like, I'm not watching. She's like, no, you gonna watch, and I'm like, no, I'm not watching. But I'm gonna watch and see, and hopefully, I don't know, I'm probably end up crying or something.
Yeah, it's a really emotional thing. And that's another thing why I like it. Like, yeah, you get a baby, but to see like people finally get their dream,
Yeah.
you know, making a family, it's really wonderful. Like I had a delivery like 5:15 one morning, like at the end of my 24-hour shift, and the dad started crying, and I was like, why am I crying? Why am I crying? So I mean, either you're gonna watch baby come out or you're gonna watch your wife.
Yeah.
It's one of those things like dad does either or.
Mhm.
And he's like looking at her in such adoration for being so strong.
Yeah.
Or he's looking at baby come and be like, I hope I did.
That is wild. Okay, cool. So different rotations. You know, you get to see a lot of different things. I'm really just picturing you in Grey's Anatomy, like watching Janelle go through without all the drama, but just going in and just you know, fixing on things and just working your way up. I want to give a different perspective as far as, let's just say we have people that really want to be a doctor. What is it like? Like, are you working full time when you apply for these, you know, medical schools? Are they paying you to live somewhere? How does food, housing work? Like, what is that like? Because
that's a big thing. I totally forgot about that. So applying to medical school is super expensive. I'm not even gonna front. It's so expensive. And that's another thing why you don't really see a lot of minorities going into medicine, because it's such an expensive process. And yeah, they have like, you know, fee assistance programs and things like that, but it only covers so much.
Yeah.
So if you're coming from like a low socioeconomic, you know, standpoint, it's really hard. One, because you're probably not really exposed to what it takes to get into medical school, because you're not really around those people, and the people in your community, a lot of them don't go to medical school. It's not one of the things they think about.
Right.
And then like the whole, like when you're applying, you know, like for me, I'm 27, almost 28. Yeah. So when I applied, I was 24. God, oh gosh. So like having to like apply like as an independent, because sometimes like if your parents make too much money, financial aid won't kick in to help you pay for things like that.
Wow.
So like the application, just to backtrack, so the application itself, I think the basic primary application is like, I want to say like 130 to 150.
Okay.
And that's to like do your application and apply to one school. And each school that you add on, I think, is like another $25 to $40.
Each school. So okay, whoa. So you apply. Let's just say we applied to the first school and we paid 150. If I want to apply to another school, it's gonna be 150 plus 25.
Yeah, like I want to say when I applied, because I had to apply twice. That's why like med school's hard to get in. I applied twice.
Yeah.
The first time I only applied to 3 schools, and it was like it's probably like 230 just to apply. 230, 240. Yeah, something like that. It was expensive.
Yeah.
The second time I only applied to 1 school, so I was like, this is it. So you do that application, that primary application. So some people that are applying to like, 20, 30, like applying broadly,
Yeah.
like it adds up.
Yeah.
And so then once you do that, you get the like secondary applications I was talking about that are coming from the school specifically.
Mm-hmm.
And to submit those, it's like another $95 to $100.
Okay.
So you're already like $500, pushing $500 just to apply.
500, yeah.
Just to apply. Then when you get in, like I know at MUSC we had to pay like a technology fee or something. That was $500. Apparently we're supposed to get it back before graduation, or maybe it goes towards like our regalia.
Your $500.
I think it goes to either like our regalia or we get it back. I can't remember. And so you do all that, but you still apply to FAFSA and everything like that. You get scholarships,
okay,
and things like that. But most students in reality live off of loans. Very few people get full rides to medical school.
Right.
Like, because medical school is, you're about $250K plus, depending on where you go.
Okay, gotcha. I'm just
so a lot of people live off of loans. So for me, what happens is I do financial aid, get loans. They pay my tuition, and then I get a refund back that I use to live off for 4 to 5 months, depending on where in the year it falls. So if like we get a refund in August, it's supposed to hold me over until January when we get the next one.
Got it.
So you use that to pay your rent. And I live in Charleston, so it's expensive.
Oh, my.
Pay your rent, your utilities, any electronics you have. Like, so if you need like a laptop or anything like that, you can kind of use your loans for that.
Right.
Transportation. So if you have a car payment or you're paying for gas.
Yeah.
Like all the things to live, cost of living is what it's called. So you live off of loans for that, and I think like depending on where you go, you get like between like 10 to 14,000 a semester,
and that's supposed to hold you for 4 months. So that's not
4
bad.
to 5 months. Yeah.
So that's not bad. Not bad.
Yeah, I mean it kind of depends because sometimes it's like it's between like 8 to 14,000. It just kind of depends.
Yeah, depends on.
Yeah, and then like each year medical school gets more expensive because like my 3rd year right now is the most expensive year to date. Wow. And I think it's because like, they have to factor in like malpractice and stuff like that because now like we're like, acting on patients. They have to like make sure we're covered by the university.
Yeah.
So yeah, you get enough money to live off on. Now you're still scraping. You're still scraping, but you can make it.
Gotta have that money management.
Yeah, it's a lot of money management and a lot of time management, like very budget, like heavy. Like you have to have a budget.
Yeah.
And if you're fortunate to have family and friends, like that'll, like the holidays come around, they'll give you a monetary donation, or like if you like me, like I did like the whole like going away party, and I got donations from like church members and family members to kind of help set me up before I got that first loan because you moving in July, the class won't start till August.
Yeah.
So if you're fortunate enough to have family and friends, they can also kind of help offset the cost a little bit too. But yeah, it's like you can live. They give you enough to live.
I got you. I just wanted to make sure because it was a good point. Just because I wanted to make sure, because some people for that very reason will say I don't want to do it just because I don't know how I'm gonna survive. They kind of kill the self-sabotage their own dreams. But there's a way. Like if you really want to do it, if there's anything that you want to obtain, you can do it. You just got to kind of, whatever comes on the back end of that, right? You just got to be able to handle that because not only are you taking loans and you got to work on paying these loans back. What is that like? I know everybody, you want to be a doctor. Excuse me. And it seems like there's so many different obstacles that deteriorate people away from being a doctor versus pushing more people forward, right? What is that like once you get in? And I'm not sure, you're not there yet, you're still in school, but you become a doctor, you get into your profession, you start making money. Do you make enough money to be able to pay your loans back in a good enough time? Or like, is there some type of program where they'll put money back towards your loans?
Yeah.
So like,
there's actually, So one of the things that happened our first year is one of our deans, came and talked to us about some repayment programs. And we always have a financial advisor and counselor come and talk to us as a class about ways to pay back our loans.
Gotcha.
So the big money that doctors make, you don't make until you finish residency.
Okay.
So when you're fresh out of medical school and you're starting residency, your first year, you're probably starting off at like 50 plus as your base salary. Okay. So it's really not a lot, and your loan payments are probably like really minimum if you're making them.
Okay.
But there are programs. So I think there's one called like the National Service Corps, where basically it also depends on like what you go into. So if you go into like primary care, so we're talking like pediatrics, family medicine, general surgery, OB-GYN, like things that we need more of them. There are a lot more opportunities for your loans to get paid back a significant portion. Like there's one here in South Carolina where they will, pay your tuition up front, and then you just have to come back and give them 4 years of service in rural South Carolina after residency.
Right.
So those are options like that. Versus if you go into like a specialty, like a very specific specialty, like you go into like cardiothoracic surgery, God. You need a lot more, because if you think about it, you need a lot more primary care doctors to catch these diseases early enough to prevent you from having to go to the specialist.
Yeah.
But, and the specialists will always, because there's very few of them, they'll always be there and they'll always be available. They'll always have a patient population, but we need a lot more people helping with preventive care. So primary care is like a big thing that's coming big. And they're even talking about starting to increase the pay, because primary care doctors really don't get paid as much. Like, they're probably talking, between like, you're starting out maybe like 150 to 300K versus like, cardiothoracic surgery, you're talking about like 500, $500,000 plus, So primary care is really the big thing that's taking on. Like, we need more of these generalists or people that can help catch diseases in advance. So they're starting to put out a lot of programs to really get people interested in staying in primary care or critical care, which OB would be considered like critical care. So there are definitely options to pay back. But after residency, depending on where you're living and like what you're making, because obviously if you go somewhere like Midwest where there ain't nobody, you're gonna make more than if you like down here in Charleston where there's like, MUSC takes care of like all of, Charleston. So there's like a lot of specialists down here. You kind of make more based on where you're living. But yeah, you will be able to pay back your loans. I can't tell you how long it's gonna take. It's gonna take a while.
But there's ways.
Yeah, there's always a way.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. So then that kind of, as we get towards the tail end of the conversation, just, where do you see yourself? Do you see yourself in South Carolina? Where's your dream spot to be an OB at?
So I do have to come back to South Carolina after residency. I'll be practicing in rural South Carolina, and I'm not upset about my decision, because when I did my family medicine rotation, I did it up here in Richburg, South Carolina, so right outside of Chester. Yeah. And one of the things the patients kept asking me was like, "What are you interested in?" And I was like, "OB." And they're like, "We don't have an OB here." And so a lot of times they have to go to like Rock Hill for care. So I kind of do want to come back and give back to our community here, and like in the upstate. Just because people need healthcare. So that's my plan. I don't think I'll stay in South Carolina, but I'll definitely practice here for a while. But I do want to go away for residency, since I am coming back to South Carolina afterwards.
Gotcha.
So now I'm trying to keep my options open and kind of scoping out like where I want to go. I don't want to go anywhere cold.
Okay.
So I'm limiting myself to the southeast and as far west as Texas. So still, I gotta be able to get home to my parents. I'm a daddy's girl. Daddy's girl.
Yeah.
Marvin gotta be right there.
Marvin, Big Marv, what's up, man? It was his birthday not too long ago. Hopefully he had a good one. But okay, cool. So you wanted to kind of, residency. You want to kind of get away and then come back to South Carolina. I think that'll be.
I love South Carolina. I've been here all my life.
You love it? I love it too. I like it, but it's like,
home. It's home.
Yeah,
it's
home.
Like residency is that chance to get away, and if I like being away, it is what it is.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. But yeah, right now I do plan on coming back. It was for a couple of years.
Yeah.
and then moving elsewhere and settling with a family or whatever.
Listen, if we don't have any black OB-GYNs in South Carolina, I mean, that's probably an opportunity for you to get paid, and you probably get a lot of business as far as like people wanting to come in, Janelle, she's an OB, and then, people will trust you, and, just because you from South Carolina, and, like I said, these group conversations or group chats, it's a lot of people now, of color that's looking for young women, black, that specialize in these things because they feel more comfortable being able to relate to the body. I seen a statistic where it was like a lot of things that women go through as far as with the body could be caught earlier if somebody that was black or of color, because they know y'all have a similar body, and so they can represent you well versus somebody that is maybe Caucasian. You don't get the same representation and it doesn't look the same. Is that kind of like a true statement?
I would say so. I mean, the way this talk today is about representation matters, and it really does make a difference. Like, I know just from personal experience of like dealing with black patients and their families, they are like so proud to see a black woman going into medicine, and it makes them feel so much more comfortable. They, I even had a patient. She was like, "Black woman to black woman," and it's one of those things where like they trust you that they can like be who they are without any extra judgment, and like being able to share everything that's going on with them. And so it's a really a big thing. And especially the other thing is like the statistics for black women when it comes to childbirth, they're alarmingly high. Yeah. And sometimes people do think like, like biases play a role in their care. And, my goal is to be that, that provider that patients look at and like, okay, she's going to hear my concerns and she's going to do something about it. Like, she's just not going to brush it off. Yeah. So that's definitely my goal. And I do feel like, being on this side of medicine, on the pathway to becoming a physician, like you can really see like how current, like residents and doctors interact with patients, and you kind of like pick up on things that, you're like, oh wow, like, I didn't think I'd see that, or that's just something I wouldn't do. And, it's a really learning process. So you live and you learn, and you learn like how to treat people. You obviously should treat everybody the same, not the same, but the way they should be treated, because everybody's not the same, so you have to tailor your care to them. But like in terms of like basic human decency, it should be the same. Everyone's concern should be heard. That's definitely my goal, is to make patients feel comfortable to share everything, because if they don't feel comfortable, they won't share anything, and it could be very vital to figure out what's going on with them. So
that's cool. I mean, I just hear so much. There's a lot of conversation, a lot around the black women, and just the care that they get when they're in the when they go to a doctor, and it's crazy that I didn't, because I'm not a woman, so I don't know, and I'm one of those people, like, I'm trying to I want to be a person that goes to the doctor more and take care of my body more. I'm kind of built on that. Well, if ain't nothing wrong, like I'm not going. But
that's a big thing in our community. Yeah. Just and the history behind why African Americans are very hesitant when it comes to healthcare. Yeah. So that's a very big move of trying to let people know like why you should go get this testing done, why you should do this, especially when certain diseases are more prevalent. So like prostate cancer, it's really high in African American men, but like we said, there's nothing wrong. Yeah. We're not going to go into the doctor. But if we're able to encourage people to go get their annual checkups and get those very simple preventive screening tests, we're able to catch a lot of stuff before it gets to the point where you would need to go to the doctor.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, I appreciate it. I mean, this conversation can definitely go longer, just because I'm very, get the physical. I'm very intrigued just in the issues in women, with women and babies, right? Wanting to become a future father and things of that nature. You want to make sure that your spouse is being taken care of the proper way, but you just don't know the issues, because I don't go to the doctor's office with a female. I know I go for me, and that's about it. But the issues of just how the risk is so much higher for black women. I do want to ask, just before you go, why is the risk higher for black women when delivering babies versus, you know, maybe another race? I'm just trying to figure out, like, why is it for us it's higher?
I don't think it's innately that we are just higher risk when it comes to having children. I think bias plays a huge portion in it. Just in the history of gynecology in and of itself, was based on practicing on African American slaves. So there's always like a lot of distrust there naturally. Same thing with, like, you know, Black men, Black women. We don't really go to the doctor and get our, you know, our screenings and things like that. But when it comes to childbirth, I just really think that it's, you know, bias, where people think, you know, Black women don't feel pain, or, you know, what we're experiencing isn't legit. And it's causing people to not give the same care that they should be given, and it's leading to a lot more adverse outcomes. But I definitely don't think like we're innately or susceptible to have problems with childbirth. Because I mean, I just feel like anatomically wise, I feel like, you know, the way our bodies are shaped, we might be a little bit more built for childbirth. But I do think bias plays a lot of part in it. And a lot of medical schools are really taking the time to really address bias amongst trainees, down to the med student levels, to like, okay, you know, Black women aren't like inherently likely to have obstetric complications. Like, there's something contributing to this. They say the same thing about like hypertension and diabetes. You know, it's often, you know, does deal with our diet. I mean, we don't eat the best as, you know, as a community, but I mean, it's not innately because we're African American that these diseases are like more prevalent in us.
Cool. I appreciate it. I just needed, you know, medical expertise, because, you know, you hear a lot of different things.
Not quite there, but yeah.
Not quite. Okay, I'm sorry. Not quite there, but
we getting there.
Yeah,
but
you getting there. I mean, you have seen, and you're around this type of environment, so you can give a better perspective versus somebody, you know, watching. You know, just watching on YouTube and gathering information based off like Google, you know, because you get stuff from different, but, you know, I'd rather hear it from like somebody that's in the field and just seeing it, you know, day to day, hopefully. But I mean, you'll start seeing it more prevalently as you graduate and you become an OB. So I can't wait to see it. I can't wait. And I'm super pumped, super proud of you. I hope nothing but success on your journey. I'm going to try to wrap this up. We're going to give you your time back to study, because I know it's important. Busy day, probably tomorrow. But all I need from you is just a recommendation. And a recommendation for someone that I could sit down with and be able to sit with somebody that's super dope, somebody that you think, you know, they do something that's unseen, that's not heard of a lot within our community. So I can get them on the podcast and just really dive into their story, dive into their career, and give the perspective that needs to be seen and represented. So give me one. Who you got?
I'm a little biased, but I do wonder, have you had an African American male teacher?
African American male teacher?
Yeah.
Negative. So Ray, got it.
Right. And I say that because African American male teachers are very rare.
Yeah.
And they really do make a huge difference for their students. And I know Ray specifically, he works not only like as a teacher during the day, but he also works at an after school program helping shape students. And I feel like he would be great to like just see. I mean, these kids have an effect on him. Like, it really, like, you know, teachers, I'm tired of these kids, but he's devoted. These kids are really, you know, they're really making a difference on him. And I just feel like the male, you know, because a lot of people think, you know, doctors are a very male dominated profession and teachers are very, you know, female dominated profession. But I feel like the perspective of a male teacher is, especially African American, is very unique. So you could try him.
I'm definitely gonna do it now. So I'm gonna text you. I'm like, what's Ray's number? And that's all I need.
I got you.
I'm
I
gonna get
got
Ray's
you.
number. I'm like, what's up, Ray? It's your boy. Yeah. So we have to get Ray on here. So that'll be cool. Again, I appreciate you for this conversation. It's been enlightening to me. Hopefully, it's enlightening to someone else that can use this information and just be able to apply it. And maybe, you know, if they have questions, they might reach out to you. I don't know, but
No, that's fine. We're very big about lift as you climb. I do a lot of mentoring with the students in the class behind me, as well as some high school and pre-med students that are in college. So any questions anyone has, they're more than welcome to reach out to me. If I don't know the answer, I'll get them in contact with someone who does know the answer. Because we definitely want people to not be afraid. If this is something they're passionate about, like we want them to know they have resources out there, which is one of the things I didn't realize, that there are people who are willing to help you. You just have to know how to look for them. And that's also a hard thing to do. So whoever needs help, wants advice, anything like that, like, I would love to help answer and get their questions answered, because I mean, medicine needs more diversity. And
They
if
said
this
the
is what
intro
you
was so
want, we're gonna
hard,
help you get it.
we had to give them an outro.
That's what you want. We're gonna help you get it. Well, Janelle, thank you so much. I'm gonna let you go, and you have a wonderful night. Okay.
Let's keep rocking and
Thank
rolling.
you.
See you.
Thank
Thank you so much.
Ain't nothing gonna stop us
All
now.
right.
All right.
We here. And we back. They say, Peanut, you so cold. I want to thank you, all the bosses listening to Big Boss Talk. The people listening and watching, we love you over here.